The problem was I would be working all of this out in my head, not giving it to the person who was very methodical in their process. And then I would say, okay, it's time to act now. And
Mhm.
expected them to know everything in my head. And even though I only gave them bits and pieces of the vision of where we were headed, I didn't give them enough time to look at it, to look at model and move it around and see, okay, guy, you actually have some gaps right here. Did you think about this? What's up, Mellissa?
Hey, how's it going?
Man, it is going great. So glad to have you on Get Into the Grants. You've been with me, helping me to this brainchild of mine, getting it out, getting a lot of stuff together. And I'm so thankful to have you as a friend and as a sister. Just saying it to this community that's going to be watching this, right? When if you hop on now, if you catch this on the replay, this is an amazing, amazing lady to know, to get to know.
Thank you.
Yeah, and she's the host of a phenomenal show, something that speaks to me about procrastination. But I'm gonna let her share a little bit about what getting the win show is all about.
Well, thanks. So essentially, the Getting the Win show is all about overcoming procrastination. I share tips on how to overcome procrastination based in experience and in science. That way, folks don't think I'm just giving them headcanon. Like these are real methods that work. And then I'm also interviewing people who have either overcome procrastination themselves or who just don't have that as a struggle and can teach people how to avoid it altogether. So, all about practical tips that you can take action on immediately. It's about a half hour show. It airs Wednesdays at 6 p.m. on YouTube at Getting the Win.
I appreciate that, and definitely you all check it out. Especially, if you're like me, I've procrastinated a lot, which leads me into tonight the power of pace, right? Because when you procrastinate
Mhm.
and then hit that deadline, like I'm always one that's going to get it done, but in that time crunch, my pace at getting stuff done, it's erratic. It's crazy. Like even preparing for tonight, like it wasn't that I was procrastinating, since I had a lot of things to do, and
Mhm.
it was trying to figure out this new technology with Ecamm Live is what I'm using now. Like last week it was Zoom. Y'all see me evolving through this process, but but the pace at which I tend to move at is super fast, but it's also because I've procrastinated in some areas. Something's gotten backed up, and now I have this to do, and
Mhm.
it has caused. Actually, it hasn't caused frustrations for me. It's caused frustrations for the beautiful lady that you see in the thumbnail to my right, holding our fourth child, my wife. and and
Yep.
and that level of pace when it's rapid fire, like it's, hey, gotta get it done now, gotta get it done now, gotta get it done now, it can drive a person crazy. And both Mel
Yeah.
and I are part of the UOU mastermind. And one thing that we went through this year um, was the extreme execution coaching program that we're both certified in, and a
Yep.
portion of the personalities that that come from the DISC assessment, but it's been renamed thanks to the flight assessment and ET's team, is the ground crew, which is what Mellissa and my wife are. They rank high in ground crew. And can you share a little bit about the pace of a grounds crew so people can understand like the importance of that, and then we're going to come back to myself and how that actually plays out in grant writing, your relationships, you running your business or your organization. It's a nonprofit. You got
Oh,
it.
sure. So, yeah. So, grounds crew, I love the word that Mustafa gave us. Mustafa Gonem, he's one of the, like, that is his brainchild. That's his baby. The word he likes to use is methodical. Um, Common folk like to call it slow, but methodical is a much better word. It's a little more accurate because we are a little more cautious. We're a little more careful in terms of our decision making. we don't necessarily like to move hastily because we also don't want to make any mistakes either. Like those of us who are grounds crew, we live to serve and support the people around us. And the last thing we want to do is make them look bad by doing something incorrectly. So we're very methodical and careful in our decision making. So our pace is a little slower than that of a pilot or a flight attendant. You know, pilots and flight attendants, they move a lot faster. A flight attendant wants that experience, like they want to make sure everybody's having a great time. A pilot wants to get the thing done. You know, they're getting everybody to the destination. But yeah, those of us who are grounds crew, one, we're very versatile. Like we can do 50 things. And two, we're more methodical in the way we do things because we want to make sure the people we're supporting look good
Mhm.
while we do our work behind the scenes to help them accomplish what they want.
Yeah, and that was what you said. Y'all do a lot of things, you do them well, but you have a method of doing that. Myself, she said a flight attendant and pilot. I'm actually score right, really high in pilot, and then right next in the flight attendant. And so my pace is
Real
natural.
fast.
It's really like this all the time. I do slow down. I have a good balance. My balance is growing, but thanks to my wife, it used to be really, really wild, really erratic, sporadic. What's the right word I'm looking for? I would be just always on go all the time,
Hmm.
and that caused a lot of frustrations. And I'm gonna translate this into when I was running a program. I wasn't necessarily in a not a actual nonprofit, but we were categorized as a nonprofit. I ran a youth development program and worked for the university and for the county government, and that role was a 4-H youth development agent.
Hmm.
And I was in charge of running the program, and I had a grounds crew. I now know I had some grounds crews with me. I had some ATCs with me, but the problem was I would be working all of this out of my head, not giving it to the person who was very methodical in their process. And then I would say, okay, it's time to act now. And
Hmm.
expected them to know everything in my head. And even though I only gave them bits and pieces of the vision of where we were headed, I didn't give them enough time to look at it, to look at model and move it around to see, okay, guy, you actually have some gaps right here. Did you think about this? And because I was like, okay, I got it, let's go. They then
Yeah.
we struggled some through the program, struggled getting it together. I'm up the day before sweating. I'm at the program 4 hours earlier because I didn't
Wow.
give it to a person who had a slower pace and enough time to look at this and say, we
Hmm.
did this yesterday. And I'm up thinking, hey, I got to get this done. I'm ahead of this program 4 extra hours ahead, right? So, Mellissa, what ways could a person like me or an executive director who is in that style of pace that's like, okay, let's go. What are some practical tips that they could actually do to work with a person like yourself?
The big thing when you're working with grounds crew is we thrive best in a stable system. Like our big thing is steadiness and stability. So as long as we have the full picture of what you want done, just be clear about what the steps are that you want us to do, and you can leave us alone. Like we work very well unsupervised, but yeah, as long we just need clear communication. We need to know exactly what you want done. That way, there are no surprises. Some grounds crew don't mind that. I'll be honest with you. Like, I'm a high enough air traffic control that I don't like surprises. Like, I'm very detail oriented too. So, clear communication is the key there.
Mhm.
For an executive that's moving really fast, the one thing that you pointed out that's very important is if you're someone that is aggressive, you're very visionary, you have to relay what's in your head to your people. Please, like, if you take nothing else away from what Guy and I are talking about, we are not in your head. We're not in your head. You've got to like extract what is in your head to your team. That way, any grounds crew that you're working with, that way they know exactly what you want and can deliver at the highest level for you.
Yeah, that's good. And another component of that, when we look at grant writing, right? It's I also do that, and thankfully, my pace in that space it slows down because I comb through, I read. I actually I equate it to playing games like board games and putting stuff together. I'm the one that actually will read through all the instructions first to make sure it's there. And especially when it comes to games, I read the
Mhm.
instructions to find the loophole so I can win. Like that's me. Like my
Ah, I
pilot
like
is like
it.
how do I actually win, right? And today, we actually one of the grants that I'm supporting a group for. We had a review with the grantor, the person that admitted that issued the grant funds to be applied for, and
Mhm.
and we had that meeting with them because we didn't win it, and I wanted to know why. And I simply said, hey. I've read through all the stuff. You know, we aligned, but why didn't we win? And we got all the points too. It's like it was ultra competitive. So, but what was missed? And I didn't review this component to it because that was
Mhm.
what the organization was doing. I wasn't writing it fully myself. I was just supporting, kind of just giving an overall review. But there was one specific question that we missed points on, and it was how do you work with security, right? And the group they answered it, and I thought it was fine. I was like, okay, I didn't question it because it didn't seem right to me. But when we asked them, they said we wanted you to read the 4-page packet and then answer each question specifically towards that. And I was like, ooh,
Ooh.
because of the pace we were at, everybody was good. Double check. I was brought in to do a very specific look over the program structure, not to read all those other components. And because they didn't do it, and the person was, as a high pilot, we didn't go enough detailed, right? And so I quit that back to, as you're writing grants, if you're a person that's like me, that's, hey, go, find a person that's like Mellissa that's going to look at that and really comb through it for you to help you to build a checklist out and to make sure that we have everything covered. Because you may have the program structure, how this is going to go, how you're going to do the evaluation. You have all that stuff. But if you miss that little detail, especially in the market that we're in with super competitive grants, it's going to get knocked out. And like what happened to the group I was helping to support. And it was just like, man, even he said it today. We knew we were aligned. We knew we had this. We put it this way because we thought you knew that this was that. And that's another thing we don't assume when it comes to grant writing.
Oh, you
You got to
can't.
put everything out. And Mellissa, you mentioned earlier that you have you do a lot of things well. One of your other superpowers is that you're an amazing writer,
Mhm.
right? And you have how many books?
I have 8 now.
You have 8 books now. And what else do you do? Like with that, you help people do what?
I edit. I edit. So I clean people's books up before publication, and not just books, but any written content. If it's a website, even print materials. So folks who need pamphlets done, any kind of marketing, anything. Like if it's got to get cleaned up, I clean it up. That's actually how
Right.
Guy and I were
Yeah.
first introduced.
And so, if you're writing a book, right, and you need that coaching, Melissa's that person that's going to help you to methodically write that through because we can go in, jot down a whole bunch of stuff, but if it's not structured in the right way, you're going to lose your audience as they're reading through your story. If your
Hmm.
grants are not structured in the right way in how you're writing, you're going to lose the person that reviews the grant on the back end. Right? There are some key things that you need to have if you're writing a book, you're writing a grant, you're writing a manuscript. All those things have some key steps that you need to follow. And so that's one of the things I want to again to convey to you all, the power of pace. Sometimes we have to slow down, we have to hit that gas, we have to adapt to something that we're not to get things done. But Mellissa, what on the end if we move too slow? What's some
Hmm.
of the I know we talked about what happens when we move too fast, but what happens when we move too slow? And if you're a person who leads with a slower pace, how does that negatively affect your team?
So I can definitely speak to this because I've seen it happen. It for one, it frustrates your team because if you a team has different temperaments. For one, we know all four behavior types with the assessment. So even for somebody who's an ATC, they they're methodical as well. But if you move too slow, they'll get frustrated too because they also value a system that works. And moving too slow will sabotage that system. So the key is to again master the clear communication piece. Like no matter where you are, no matter what your behavior preference is, the key is to have clear communication and narrow down what it is that's slowing you down. Very important. If it's something where you have a question and you're confused about something, make sure to ask like as soon as you have the question, because the last thing you want to do is sit on that. And then to your earlier point about making assumptions, you can't afford to do that when you're working on a grant. Like this
Mhm.
is funding, and any organization that's giving out the funds is going to be very specific because they want to make sure they want to see a return on that investment. And then for the rest of the team, ask your questions. If it's a relational thing, make sure you address that too, because harmony is also going to affect the pace of your project. If you beefing with somebody that's on the team, you have to address that, whether directly with them or if it's a situation where you do have to bring in a someone who is a superior, someone who is more senior to you. By all means, bring that senior person into it. Um, but just as long as you keep the main goal,
Mhm.
and iron out whatever those kinks are. But the communication is the most important thing. Like making sure everyone is clear on everything that needs to be done. Everybody's clear on their responsibilities. That's number one.
Yeah.
Then number two, if there are any questions regarding their specific role, ask those questions. There is no such thing as a dumb question. Anybody that's listening, it doesn't matter who you're dealing with in terms of that super aggressive, very fast moving visionary. There is no such thing as a dumb question
Yeah.
because as Carl teaches, one of the things he said on the podcast, which I love, he said a conflict is simply a difference of opinion between two people.
Hmm.
He broke it down to that simple definition, which is true. It's literally a difference of opinion.
Yeah.
So ask your questions and get your clarity. Make sure all communication, both oral and written, are clear, and everybody will move a lot faster when they're clear.
Yeah. That's really good because I'm looking back when I served in that role. Um, the director, the executive, I mean um, the director of our program was extremely high ground screw, and also extremely high potentially right next maybe ATC, right?
Hmm.
And when we would be setting up for an event, the level of precision that he set the chairs up at, I'm like, bro, like we got 10 other things to do. And I'm like, he's at each inch. I'm so serious. I'm so serious. All of us were like, come on, man. Like, but I
That
understood
would be me. Like I'm
that
so specific with that stuff. We get in the weeds with that, man.
the beauty of having a person like that is that they could comb through some of the things that you were working on. When I was working on the overall vision for where we're about to take the group of kids for this next year, our strategic plan, he was like, "Guy, well, did you slow down and think about this?" And or I was actually talking to him from A to Z. Like I was jumping from A to Z back to M, back to N, and said, "This is what we're about to do. This is here. This is there." And I could tell his eyes started just glossing over. His brain was like, "What was happening?" And it taught me how to talk linearly about the vision,
Yes.
how to slow
Yes.
down and give some bullet points. Because once you get inside this, Melissa's experienced it. She's like, "Guy, what are you
Yes.
talking about?" I'll just start talking.
I had to ask him, like, wait, let's bring it back.
Yeah, yeah. But thanks to that, right? So back to the pace. Why is that important, right? We're at the end of the year. Many of us are, doing strategic plans for next year. We're looking at, okay, how we're going to move forward. Maybe you start strategic planning in January and February, and you've been thinking about this vision for months, like where you had it, like where you about to go, and then you just go and blab it out. A lot of some of your team may catch it, but some of your team may not, right? People who are these visionaries, we're only 12% of the world, so we're speaking to more people who are on that slower pace that need to help to have that level of understanding, right? And then this is going to help your team to know, okay, these are the grants that we need to go after, right? These are going to help you to put that plan out. Okay, this is how we're going to attack that. This is how we're going to move forward. And then when you get the grants in hand, because now you've been out shaking hands, meeting people, talking about, building these relationships, what you're going to do, and say, oh God, we love what you're going to do. We have funding coming out, and you get that application, and you're like, okay, start going to work, and you haven't really read through it yet. You get to doing all that work, spending 30 plus hours on a grant, and then when you hit submit, you don't submit it inside of you don't submit your budget in the right format. How would you feel that you've spent all that time building the relationship, doing all that talking, then getting the grant, then spending all that time with your team, and then you didn't slow down enough to read through it all the way. You didn't slow down enough to ask the questions to the grantor. How would you feel and if they just reject it and it's because you didn't do something the right way?
Yeah, that's it's very important. I mean, one of the points that you made that I loved within our mastermind was yes, knowing the dominant behavior style is important, but that secondary behavior style is just as important.
Mm-hmm.
So for folks that are working on getting grants, like the key, not only is to have someone who is, whether that's grounds crew as the primary, or, maybe have a pilot that's the primary, but have a pilot that's also ATC. Like you're going to want somebody that is very high air traffic control as it relates to grant writing. Someone who is just as aggressive with the pilot part, but having that ATC as the secondary, they will be very meticulous in terms of going over all of the details that's required in the grant, go over all of the spreadsheets, like pour over all of the details, but still have that level of visionary aggression that you can delegate as the leader or the executive director. That way you can still focus on your organization, but leave the details of the grant part to that person. And then they can kind of oversee the team of people working on the grant.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So I didn't pay her to say that at all, but that's how my flight assessment is set up. Like I am literally like a 60 some pilot, uh, maybe 2 points away flight attendant, and then my ATC is like 5 points away from my flight my pilot. So it helps me. Like I said earlier, I read all the rules so I can win. Like that's the only reason I read the
Mm-hmm.
rules.
Mm-hmm.
Like I read all the rules so I can win, right? And find out all the loopholes. So I can beat everybody else because they don't know all the rules of the game. Like that's the reason why I read the rules, and then I go ask questions too because it makes sure I understand, and then making sure that all right, this is what they said I could do, but they didn't say I couldn't do this. Let me go ahead
Mm-hmm.
and I've actually that strategy on winning grants too. So it is what it is. You gotta use what you can in this competitive market, right? Because everybody needs funding. Everybody has a mission that they need to fund, right? But I recognize that it's confusing, and that's one of the reasons why I started Access Granted is to help you all to remove that confusion so you can access the funding that's available to you. And next, actually, the start of the year, Mellissa is on my team. I needed a bunch of people who are slower paced to bring this vision out. We have a real aggressive goal of working or helping and hand holding 100 organizations to build out their master grant template. So that way, when grants come out, you're prepared to go and attack those. Because sometimes you have the right amount of funding, you've made the right relationship, and they've given you 6 weeks, 4 weeks. Heck, the one that we did was 2 weeks to apply for the funding that you need. You need a tool in place so that way when that opportunity comes for you, you can quickly copy and paste it over. We're going to be helping 100 people create that master grant blueprint next year. You're going to see some marketing come out in a few weeks about the first level of this to work with us. I want you all to take advantage of it. Not because I'm just looking to make another dollar. No. My next thing is a flight attendant, right? Because I care. My heart is big. My heart is bigger than but what I really care about is because I was a kid that had benefited from grants. My mom was a grant writer who changed our community, who changed my life from my brother, myself, all my peers. We had opportunities to travel outside of a one stoplight county, one stoplight in the entire county. I got a chance to see culture, to experience that where our community couldn't really afford that. That's what I really care about, is making sure that kids like myself who could be great have that opportunity, and that their parents as well too, because they're in that same environment too. They need that level of exposure. They need that for their kids. And I saw what happened when I was able to get grant funding for the kids I was in charge of serving. I saw what happened to their parents. I saw how their parents were extremely proud of what their kids were able to achieve, right? I now write grants for municipalities or help support writing grants for municipalities to see what it's like to transform a school, to make that more of a dilapidated school, to transform it, to make it an economic powerhouse for a small community. I know what it's like to help get people housing, right? But if you don't know how to work through the complications of a grant, I'm here. I'm literally your guy. And our team is putting in something amazing for you all the start of the year. And so you'll see that coming out again. I appreciate you for hopping on and joining here. It's been 27 minutes. I try to keep these to 15 minutes, but these conversations get so rich. But if you're also a person who's struggling with procrastination, right? You know there's something that you need to be doing, right? You're not doing something in your organization, for your family, for yourself. Mellissa, how do they connect with you again? How do they go to your show?
So just go to youtube.com/at getting the win. So just look for Getting the Win Show in the search, or at Getting the Win. And I'm on Instagram as well, at Getting the Win Show.
Awesome. Y'all tune in. Hey, Marcus, appreciate you for reaching out. I see you in the chat there. Definitely go to www.accessgrant-ed.com. Book some time with me. It's free to do that, and we can pick my brain. Thank you. I appreciate your comments. I'm glad you found this of value. And again, if you missed that, just send me a message. You can send me a private message, and I'll respond to you here tonight and show you how we can connect, and we can talk a little bit more about what you need to do and where you're at in your journey. Because again, if you're here, that means you have a mission that you're looking to fund, and I'm hoping that the information that I can provide for you will help you in that next step along your journey, so you can access the funding that's available. Listen, you all, have a great night. Mellissa, I appreciate you popping on.
No
Yeah,
problem. Thanks for having me.
absolutely. And remember, the pace is important. Know your team so that way you can work efficiently and effectively together. All right, y'all. See y'all next Tuesday. Oh, and because it's going to be after Christmas, I celebrate Christmas. Merry Christmas to you all. And actually next week, the person I'm bringing on, they're going to be talking about the gift of a grant, right? They actually won their first $50,000 grant a couple of weeks ago. We're going to be talking about that, how that has helped change their business. And so, all right, y'all. See y'all next week. Happy Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving. Woo, I'm ready to eat. Merry Christmas. There we go. That's the right holiday. Merry Christmas. And we'll see y'all next Tuesday. Peace.